Hello, I'm Hickey from interest.co.nz and welcome to a special economic weather report brought to you in association with BNZ. Today I'm going to have a look at some migration figures, ones you probably haven't heard before, which look at the percentage of New Zealand-born graduates who actually live and work overseas. And this is the interesting thing. New Zealand has the highest percentage of graduates who are born in New Zealand who live overseas, 24.2%, just above Ireland. And that compares with 3% for Australian-born graduates. There are currently 168,000 New Zealand graduates who live and work overseas. 168,000. That's more than who live in Hamilton. You compare that with Australians, there are only 118,000 graduates who are born in Australia who live overseas. And that's where Australia has 5 times the total population as us. Obviously, we have a major problem. Our best and our brightest are leaving. Now, this is all very topical with the tax working group coming back with its proposals for tax reform this week. And underlying that tax working group report is the problem of mobile labour forces. New Zealand needs to have a tax structure and some real wages which keep New Zealanders here. Otherwise, we risk essentially leaching to death. Now, before you go into the details of this, it's worth actually telling you my personal story of why I'm here in New Zealand. Because I graduated as a journalist in 1992 in Wellington, and eventually, after 6 months of unemployment, got a job as a financial journalist with Reuters. Back then, unemployment for the youth, this was during the recession of 1990 to 1992, back then unemployment for youth was around 30 to 35%, and I really struggled to get a job. And then when I did get a job, it was earning less than $30,000 a year. And then I got married and had a young daughter, and worked out after a couple of years that it didn't make any sense for me to stay in New Zealand. And a job offer came up with Reuters to go and work in Canberra. So that's what I did, and I spent the next 10 years travelling around the world, like many other of those 168,000 graduates. New Zealand born, but living overseas, because they've decided the best place to grow their careers and their incomes and their wealth was overseas. And then, like many New Zealanders, after 10 years overseas, I wondered, is this where I really want my kids to grow up? Where do I really want to live? And I come back from those summer holidays in New Zealand thinking I really want to live in New Zealand. And so I took a gamble and decided to come back and live in New Zealand. I actually took a 65% pay cut to do it, and there was this moment of truth when, and this faces many New Zealanders who live overseas, when they look at where they really want to be, they look at the options they have in front of them in terms of how much they can earn, what they can afford in terms of houses and their lifestyle, and make a decision. Many choose to take a lower standard of living, even after the fact we've got better beaches and better weather and the likes. But it's this moment of truth where New Zealand needs to have a much better offering to New Zealanders living overseas. And that's what the tax working group is really talking about. It wants to lower tax rates, improve real wages, and to do that you need stronger economic growth and a much fairer and more efficient tax system. Because right now, if you're a New Zealand graduate and you're looking at living in either New Zealand or Australia, you'll see that you actually earn more and pay a lower average tax rate in Australia, up to about $240,000 New Zealand, when you have comparable wages. So right now it's a no-brainer, and as soon as those jobs become available again in Australia, we'll be off. Now this is the problem for New Zealand, and one that the tax working group is trying to address. And I'd actually love to hear your stories. What are you seeing as either a young New Zealander who's just graduated or a graduate who's living overseas? What would you like to see the tax working group and the government do to reform not just the tax system but the economy? I'm Hickey. That was a special economic weather report with a bit of a personal twist, brought to you in association with BNZ.